My wife told me she was pregnant, and I was overjoyed, until one night, my best friend's ex called me in tears, saying he had been cheating on her. Curious and uneasy, I started digging. What I discovered shattered everything. My wife and my best friend had been having an affair behind my back, and now there's a strong chance the baby she's carrying might not even be mine. The betrayal hit from both sides, and I had no idea who to confront first. My wife, Chloe, and my best friend, Mark, were having an affair, and the baby she's carrying might not be mine. Chloe and I have been married for 5 years, together for 8. We built our lives from scratch, starting in a small apartment and working tirelessly to save for a house. 3 years ago, we bought our dream home, doing everything together from choosing paint colors to planting a garden. We even plan to start a family next year. Mark has been my best friend since our first year of college. We were roommates for 4 years, and he was the best man at my wedding. I was supposed to be his. He was more like a brother. He'd come over at least twice a week, and we'd watch sports, work on cars, or just hang out. Chloe and Mark always got along, and I thought it was great that my wife and best friend had such a good relationship. I considered them two of the most important people in my life. About 2 months ago, Chloe told me she was pregnant. I was shocked because we'd been using protection, agreeing to wait until next year. When I asked her about it, she just smiled and said it must be a happy accident, suggesting the universe knew best. Despite my initial hesitation, her excitement was contagious, and I got swept up in it. I started looking at cribs and reading books about fatherhood, allowing myself to believe in this happy accident. The first sign something was wrong came about a month ago when Mark's long-term girlfriend, Sarah, called me late one night. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She told me they had broken up because Mark had admitted to cheating. I felt terrible for both of them. I told her I'd talk to Mark, thinking he was just being an idiot and I could help him fix things. They'd been together for almost 10 years. When I confronted Mark, he became defensive, saying it was none of my business and his relationship with Sarah was complicated. He claimed he'd made a mistake and was dealing with it. I pushed him, reminding him that 10 years wasn't something to just throw away. He got angry, told me to drop it, and yelled that I had no idea what was going on. It was an ugly fight, unlike anything we'd ever had. He left my house, and we didn't speak for a week. During that week, Chloe was incredibly supportive. She comforted me when I was upset about the fight with Mark, saying he was probably going through something and would come around. She encouraged me to give him space. Now I see she wasn't being supportive. She was manipulating me. The truth finally came out last week. Sarah called me again, but this time she sounded cold and calm, not hysterical. She said she'd done some digging because Mark's story didn't add up. She found a hotel charge on his credit card from a few months back. On a hunch, she checked his phone records and found dozens of calls and texts to one number he'd tried to delete. She looked up the number. It was Chloe's. Sarah told me she believed Mark and Chloe were having an affair. The hotel charge was from a weekend I was out of town for a work conference, and the calls and texts had been happening for at least 6 months. Then she asked me Chloe's due date. After I told her, there was a long pause. Sarah then said that, based on when she thought the affair started, there was a very real possibility the baby wasn't mine. I hung up the phone. I didn't want to believe it. I went into the living room where Chloe was watching TV, stood in front of the screen, and asked her directly if she was having an affair with Mark. She immediately started crying. She didn't even try to deny it. She just sat there sobbing, saying it was a mistake. The argument that followed was the worst moment of my life. I didn't stay calm. I screamed at her, asking how she could do this to me in our house. She cried, saying she didn't know how it happened, that she'd been lonely and I was always working. She claimed Mark was just there, and one thing led to another. I got in her face, yelling that I worked hard to build our life, the life she wanted. I pointed at the walls of our house, telling her my sweat paid for them. Then I asked her about the baby. Whose baby was it? She completely broke down, sobbing that she didn't know and was hoping it was mine. She kept repeating that she wanted it to be mine. That was what broke me. The thought that she could lie to me for the rest of my life, that she could raise another man's child with me and have me believe it was mine. I told her to get out. She refused, screaming that she was pregnant and had nowhere to go, calling me cruel. I started grabbing her things and throwing them into bags. She tried to stop me, grabbing my arms. I pulled away and told her if she wasn't out of the house in an hour, I'd throw all her belongings onto the front lawn. She finally left, still crying, and went to her parents' house. The next day, she and her parents started calling me, telling me I was a monster for kicking out my pregnant wife. They said all marriages have problems and I needed to be a man and forgive her. Chloe had told them we had a fight, but left out the affair and the baby's paternity. That's when I made my decision. I drove to her parents' house. Chloe was there, sitting between her mother and father. They all looked at me like I was a villain. Her father started to stand up, telling me I had a lot of nerve showing my face. I didn't let him finish. I stood in their living room and told them everything. I told them Chloe had been sleeping with my best friend for over 6 months. I told them she was pregnant and had admitted the baby might be Mark's. The room went completely silent. Chloe's face was white. Her mother just stared at me, then at Chloe. Her father sat back down, looking stunned. Chloe started screaming that I was a liar and trying to ruin her life. She stood up and tried to come at me, but her father held her back. I looked at her and told her she had ruined her own life and mine. Then I turned around and walked out. Now my phone is blowing up with texts from her family, and our mutual friends. Some are calling me evil and vindictive for airing her dirty laundry, saying I should have handled it privately. Chloe is claiming I did it just to hurt and humiliate her. My own parents think I was justified, but they're biased, and I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. I was hurt and angry, and I acted, but was it the right thing to do? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my original post. First, thank you to everyone who commented. The overwhelming, not the asshole, verdict made me feel less insane. Reading stories from others who'd been through similar betrayals was awful, but also made me feel less alone. I want to provide an update because things have gotten worse. After I left her parents' house, the situation fractured Chloe's family. Her father called me the next day, sounding like a broken man. He apologized for his daughter's behavior and how he'd treated me, saying he was disgusted and ashamed. Her mother, however, has doubled down on supporting Chloe. She's been leaving me voicemails, saying I'm destroying her daughter and will regret my actions. Chloe is currently staying with her. As for Mark, he's been completely silent. He hasn't answered my calls or texts. He's essentially vanished. His ex-girlfriend, Sarah, however, has been in contact. After my original post, I decided to meet with her in person. We met, and it was one of the strangest experiences of my life. Sarah had gone through Mark's bank statements and phone records with a fine-tooth comb. She had his login details, dates, times, and locations. The affair was more extensive than I'd imagined. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was an ongoing relationship. They had a routine, meeting for lunches, and using a specific hotel across town. Hearing the details made me sick. Sarah is furious, not just heartbroken. She wasted 10 years of her life on a man who was building a separate life behind her back. While we were talking, she looked at me and said she wanted to make sure they didn't get away with it, that they shouldn't be allowed to destroy our lives and then build a happy one together on the ruins. I completely agreed with her. It was in that moment that we decided to work together. It's not about dramatic movie-like revenge, but about ensuring there are consequences for their actions. The first step was hiring a lawyer. I found the most ruthless divorce attorney I could. I met with him last week with Sarah present, and she provided all the evidence she'd collected. My lawyer was very clear. The state we live in is a no-fault divorce state, so the infidelity doesn't legally affect asset division in a major way. However, the paternity of the child is a huge issue. He's filed the divorce papers on my behalf, and also a motion to compel a prenatal paternity test. Chloe was served the divorce papers at her mother's house. According to the process server, her mother opened the door, took the papers, and slammed the door in his face. A few hours later, my phone rang. It was Chloe. She was screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She was hysterical, accusing me of trying to take her baby away. She shrieked that the stress was going to cause her to miscarry, and it would be my fault. She called me a monster and wished she'd never met me. I just listened, and when she paused for breath, I told her she should have her lawyer contact mine. Then I hung up. The next day, Mark and Chloe showed up at my house together. I saw them pull up from the living room window. I opened the door before they could even knock. They were standing on my porch, Mark looking nervous and Chloe defiant. Mark started to speak, saying we needed to talk and that this had all gone too far. I cut him off, telling him he wasn't welcome at my house and needed to leave. Chloe pushed past him and got in my face. She screamed that this was her house too, that I couldn't just kick her out and try to take her child. She poked me in the chest, yelling that I was being controlled by Sarah. She called Sarah a vindictive witch who was poisoning my mind. Mark tried to pull Chloe back, telling her to calm down. She turned on him, screaming not to tell her what to do and that he needed to be a man and stand up to me. The two of them started arguing right there on my front porch. It was a pathetic spectacle. He was telling her she was making things worse, and she was crying that he wasn't supporting her. I had enough. I yelled over both of them that they had 5 seconds to get off my property before I called the police for trespassing. That finally shut them up. Chloe gave me a look of pure hatred. Mark just looked defeated. He took her by the arm and led her back to the car. As they drove away, I saw them arguing in the car. I've changed all the locks on the house. I've also frozen our joint savings account, leaving only the joint checking account with enough money for immediate bills. My lawyer advised me to do this to protect the marital assets from being drained. I've started the process of getting the house appraised so I can buy her out of her share. Sarah and I have been spending a lot of time together, mostly with our respective lawyers and going over financial documents. She's suing Mark for the money she invested in the house they shared, which was in his name. I know this is going to get much uglier before it gets better. Update 2: this will likely be my longest update, as events have dramatically accelerated. In the past month, the motion for a prenatal paternity test was granted by the court. Chloe fought it, of course. Her lawyer argued it was medically unnecessary and purely to harass a pregnant woman. My lawyer, in turn, presented the evidence Sarah had collected, including hotel receipts and text logs, arguing that determining paternity was essential for the divorce proceedings, particularly concerning future child support and custody arrangements. The judge agreed with us. The day Chloe had to go for the amniocentesis was tense. Her mother called me in the morning and left a voicemail, sobbing, accusing me of putting her daughter and grandchild at risk for my own selfish revenge. She called me a heartless creature. I deleted the voicemail without listening to all of it. I didn't feel good about the procedure, but I felt it was necessary. The uncertainty was a poison, and I needed it out of my system. The results came. Back 2 weeks later, my lawyer called me and asked me to come to his office. Sarah came with me. We sat in his conference room, and he slid a document across the table. I didn't even need to read the whole thing. The key phrase jumped out at me. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the fetus. I should have felt relief. I just stared at the paper. It was the undeniable confirmation of the lie I had almost lived. Sarah reached across the table and put her hand on my arm. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then my lawyer cleared his throat and started talking about the next steps. With the paternity confirmed, we could now finalize the divorce on much cleaner terms. There would be no child support for me, no custody battle. I was free. We had the house appraised. As I expected, Chloe's lawyer contested the appraisal, claiming it was too low. We're now in the process of getting a second, court-appointed appraisal. In the meantime, I've been systematically separating our lives. I went through every room in the house and packed all of Chloe's personal belongings into boxes. I stacked them neatly in the garage. I called her and left a message telling her she could arrange a time to pick them up. She came with Mark a few days later. It wasn't civil. I'd asked 2 of my friends to be at the house with me just in case things got out of hand. Chloe walked into the house and looked around. She saw that I'd already taken down all our photos. The walls were bare. She started to cry, not loudly, but quietly. She whispered that she couldn't believe I had erased her. Mark tried to play the peacemaker again. He came up to me and said they were struggling. He said that with his legal battle with Sarah and now the baby coming, they were in a bad place financially. He had the audacity to stand in the house I bought, next to the woman he had an affair with, and ask me for money. Something inside me snapped. I told him that every dollar I gave Chloe beyond what the law required was a dollar I was taking from my own future, a future they had tried to destroy. I said they had made their choices and now had to live with them. Chloe overheard me. Her quiet tears turned into rage. She started screaming that I was obsessed with money and never cared about her. She pointed at me and yelled that I was a cold, empty man and that this was why she had turned to Mark in the first place. She said Mark had a heart, that he had passion, while I only had a checkbook. The argument escalated into a full-blown screaming match in my living room. My friends had to step between us. Mark was yelling at me to stop upsetting Chloe, saying she was pregnant. I screamed back that he should have thought about that before he slept with my wife. Chloe was sobbing hysterically, calling me every name she could think of. In the middle of it all, she stumbled and clutched her stomach, crying out that she was having cramps. Mark panicked. He started yelling at me that I had done this, that if anything happened to the baby, it was my fault. He helped a crying Chloe out of the house into their car, shooting me a look of pure venom before he left. They didn't take any of her things. The boxes are still sitting in my garage. The fallout has extended to our social circle. Sarah and I made a conscious decision not to hide what happened. When our mutual friends asked, we told them the truth, backed up by the paternity test results. The friend group has been shattered. Some have sided with Chloe and Mark, buying into the narrative that I'm a vindictive monster and Sarah is a scorned woman out for blood. Others are disgusted with them and have cut them off completely. Every social gathering has become a minefield. We've lost friends over this. But the biggest escalation happened at work. Mark and I work for the same firm, though in different departments. Sarah, while going through Mark's expenses for her own lawsuit, noticed that he had expensed several expensive client dinners on dates that coincided with the hotel stays. The restaurants were nowhere near the client's offices. She also found records of him using the company car for trips that were clearly not work-related based on the mileage and locations. Sarah and I debated what to do with this information for a long time, but then we thought about Mark asking me for money, about Chloe blaming me for everything. We decided to act. I anonymously submitted the evidence to the company's HR department through their whistleblower portal. I didn't mention the affair. I just presented it as a case of potential expense and asset fraud. An internal investigation was launched last week. I know this because Mark was suspended pending the outcome. Yesterday, I heard through the office that he was fired. They terminated his employment for gross misconduct and misuse of company property. The moment I heard the news, I felt a surge of something I can only describe as dark satisfaction. He had lost his job. His career at the company we had both started at as junior engineers was over. I called Sarah and told her. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Good." The consequences were immediate. That night, my car's tires were slashed while it was parked in my driveway. There's no proof, but I know who did it. I filed a police report and installed security cameras around the house. This is my life now. Sarah and I have grown closer through all of this. Our relationship started as an alliance, but it's becoming something more. We understand each other's anger and pain. We are the only two people who know the full story. We are in this together until the end. I am no longer asking if I'm the asshole. I honestly don't care anymore. I am just seeing this through. Final update, this is the last time I will be posting about this situation. There's not much left to say, and frankly, I'm tired of living in it. The last few months have been a slow, grinding conclusion to a miserable chapter of my life. The divorce was finalized last month. After Mark was fired, their ability to fight me on financial matters evaporated. Chloe's lawyer became much more agreeable. They accepted the second appraisal of the house. I had to take out a new mortgage, but I was able to buy her out. The house is now officially mine alone. Her name is off the deed. Her boxes from the garage were picked up by her father while I was at work. He left a short note for me, simply saying he was sorry for everything. I haven't heard from her mother since that last voicemail. Mark's professional life is in ruins. Being fired for gross misconduct from a firm in our industry has effectively blacklisted him. Sarah's lawsuit against him also concluded. She was able to prove that she had contributed a significant amount of money to their shared home and assets. The court ordered him to pay her back. Between that and his unemployment, he is financially destroyed. Chloe gave birth to a boy 2 weeks ago. I only know this because a former mutual friend sent me a text message with a picture. I deleted it immediately. The baby's existence is a fact, but it has nothing to do with me. According to the same friend, Chloe and Mark are living in a small, cheap apartment. Mark is working a manual labor job for cash to make ends meet. Chloe is on maternity leave from her part-time job, but there's no guarantee it will be there when she's ready to go back. Their lives are a mess. They got what they wanted, each other and a baby, but they lost everything else. Sarah and I are together now. We live together in my house. I fell in love with Sarah.